Welcome to the Vintage Hollywood Archive. Marion Davies was an American film actress, producer, screenwriter, and philanthropist. Today, however, she is better remembered as the mistress of newspaper tycoon William Randolph Hearst. Educated in a religious convent, Davies fled the school to pursue her career as a chorus girl. Ups and downs and trials and tribulations were what got her into Hollywood, and she became what she had never dreamt of becoming. Why Marion Davies was a mistress and never a wife. Make sure to watch the video until the end and leave your thoughts in the comments. If you are new here, join our wonderful community by subscribing to the channel. A threatening and dangerous combination of a vixen and a siren, Marion Davies was an ethereal blonde beauty. The star actress of two of the best comedy movies, Show People and The Patsy, she played the blonde with no brains pretty well. Glitzy, smart, and always willing to help, both on-screen and off, she was also known for her 35-year-long love affair with William Randolph Hearst. Unfortunately, Davies has too often been remembered for a film which she never appeared, Citizen Kane. It was a film that had basically revolved around her in her last years, causing scandals and making trouble for the otherwise non-problematic movie star. In her teenage years, she appeared in several Broadway films and one musical, Runaway Romany. Marion Davies had quite a peculiar life. From a career in the film industry of her 3-decade-long relationship with William Randolph Hearst, who was a newspaper tycoon, many stories about her life have been made. Despite having a successful career filled with achievements, she did experience predicaments. With being Hearst's mistress, many doors opened for her, an opportunity for the audience to whisper in hushed voices. Her work, of course, was supported by the fans. However, critics questioned her achievements and raised brows when the question came related to the power her man held. And as easy as her life was within the industry, her family life was much more complicated. Although she had a good relationship with her family members, most of her blood relatives were in their graves by the time she was a teenager. She was very close to Hearst's associates, his family. Especially his children had a very difficult time accepting Marion as their father's mistress. The elites and high society people did not like her one bit, and she was often not invited to their gatherings, and most did not spare her a second glance. Hearst's wife, Millicent, was a negligent woman and did not pay attention to her husband at all. It was very apparent to all those around them that she was in it for the fortune and money. She could have asked for a divorce, but why didn't she? His wife was adamant on securing her place in the high society, which would only be possible if they were a couple, and she was hard to remove his life since she had had 5 sons with him. In 1937, she declined the opportunity to help Hearst when he was almost going bankrupt and still did not file for a divorce. However, Marion had a very special place in Hearst's heart and was devoted to her. Marion was the one who gave Hearst the $1 million when she had lived as Hearst's mistress for 2 decades. Their relationship was certainly more than just a one-night stand. It was, as some have said, exhausting for her to have this unrequited love in a way. Despite everything she would be and was willing to do for Hearst, he would never reciprocate the same emotions as her. And people seldom wonder what she saw in him. No charm or wit for sure in a man that was more than 3 decades older. Handsome? Far from it. Wealthy? Absolutely. And maybe that was what drew her in. She could have had any man in Hollywood, but she chose him. Marion Doris was born on January 3, 1897, in Brooklyn, New York. Youngest of 5 siblings, she was the daughter of Bernard J. Doris, who was a judge and a lawyer in New York City, and Rose Riley. Her father had performed the civil marriage of socialite Gloria Gold Bishop, a female activist at the time. She had 3 older sisters, which had entered the Hollywood life. Her family lived near the Prospect Park in New York. Educated in a religious convent near Hudson River and later a convent near Tours, France, Davies was uninterested in her studies and was a very happy child, as supervised by the nuns. Her family was very close with the architect Stanford White, and Davies grew up learning about the Evelyn Nisbet scandal. As a teenager, she left school to pursue a career as a showgirl, taking the last name that one of her sisters did, Davies. She met Hearst when she was 19, and she immediately knew he was her way to stardom. Her fling with the older man Hearst both ensured she would have a movie career and also doomed her to humiliation and little stardom. Her constant battle with the housewife of MGM's Irving Thalberg ruined the mutually helpful bond between Hearst and the studio. But no matter, on Hearst and Davies' behalf, MGM's Louis B. Mayer tried to destroy the greatest American film ever made. In 1918, Davies, with the obvious help of Hearst, signed a contract with MGM for $5 a week. Davies had trouble speaking, but that was something trivial. She had large, full of emotion eyes, highly photogenic blonde hair, and puffy arched lips. Those who had refused to hire her, or those that had fired her, would still admit that she was extremely gorgeous and photogenic. Accounts of Davies and interviews about Davies tell us that her sense of humor was not good at all. She is reported to have said about her initial days, "I couldn't act, but the idea of silent pictures appealed to me because I couldn't talk either." Hearst was a genius man, and he gave quite a lot of thought to what he wanted to do with Marion. It struck him one day that he would do exactly what he did with his newspaper company. He would make it happen. The thing with newspapers was that it did not have to be real. You could spread rumors and it would just happen. And so, Hearst decided to dedicate himself and his company into spreading news about her, Marion Davies, and what a wonderful actress she was. The next step was to find films for her to star in, and he found them. And by 1920, she had appeared in 7 films with the most talented people in the industry, including Anita Loos, a famous screenwriter, but despite all this, she had yet to prove herself as an actual talented actress. Everyone in the industry, and outside it, knew of Hearst's and Marion's relationship. The couple moved in together at San Simon in 1919, in Hearst's newly constructed mansion that was more than enough for them. Although their love knew no bounds or limits, Hearst did not ever divorce his wife, and as ironic as it was, continued living with Marion in a very open relationship. Despite his control over his newspaper company, other newspapers started leaving harsh reviews on Marion's movies and calling them no more than some vanity productions. No matter, Hearst's love and his money were boundless when it came to Davies. Despite harsh reviews and acclaims, many had started noticing how Marion was funny off-screen and behind the scenes, and how she got along with everyone, including the staff. Many, including critics, started noticing how gorgeous she was and how youthful she was, in particular after a film she had starred in. In 1921, Davies had starred in a film called Enchantment, in which she played a full 2 years before she shot the film Flaming Youth, which is thought of as her on-screen debut. As innocent and sweet her roles were, they were all but forced and a facade, as Hearst was a controlling man and was in charge of her on-screen image. See, he was a man that was born in the 19th century, and he had an entirely different way of looking at things. A misogynist at heart, Hearst believed that his girlfriend's social image should be flawless and pure, a woman who is without sin, much like what was believed in the Victorian era. Adding to that, some say the reason behind it was their peculiar relationship. He knew marrying her was out of the question, and because of that, people would talk. High society loved gossiping, and she would be another subject of their interest. An unmarried woman living with a man? What a hussy. Thus he felt the need to protect her and his image. He felt as if he had robbed her of her dignity at a very young age and felt the need to restore it in a way, insisting that she appeared pious on screen. A little into the year of 1923, Hearst managed to arrange a distribution partner for Goldwyn, which a year or so later was bought by Lowe's Inc. and folded into their newspaper-formed name, Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer. The company's old assets were transferred over, which among other things had included the contract Hearst had made with them. Hearst was keen to negotiate with them about the deal and came up with something that would give both him and Marion a hefty sum in their banks. The deal stated that MGM would fully finance the movies and would turn around 30% of the profits over to Hearst and Davies, who was also paid a salary of $10,000 a week, 60% of which was paid by the studio and the rest was managed by Hearst. Louis B. Mayer of MGM didn't make this deal because he was so enamored by Marion Davies' talent. He made it because it brought him money. In 1928, after the release of his masterful silent film, The Crowd, Marion was approached by Vidor regarding an offer to star in a Hollywood satire he wanted to make. Vidor, like every Tom, Dick, and Harry who knew Marion, knew she had more potential than she let on. He thought she would be perfect for a screwball comedy and perhaps good at cracking jokes and taking pies in the face. After he had finished talking and anticipated what she had to say, he was glad that it was a yes. Marion was beyond thrilled, quite more so than her boyfriend. Everything was going smoothly, and things were going well when a few days before the shooting was to begin, Vidor was called into Mayer's office. Not giving much thought to it, he went, but what he had not expected to see there was Hearst himself. Hearst looked him right in the eye and said, "I'm not going to let Marion be hit in the face with a pie." Davies made the movie, which was called Show People, and there was no pie. However, she managed to have Hearst called away to his office one day so that they could shoot her getting a spray of soda water right in her eyes. She was dedicated. After this, Marion, along with her closest friend and boyfriend, decided to plan a long trip to different parts of Europe. After endless nights of clubbing, getting drunk, eating in five-star restaurants, and having the time of their lives, they returned and found out that sound had taken hold at MGM. They were going to be producing films with actual voices and music now. Although they were the last studio to adopt the sound technology, they made the most of it. In the fall of 1928, Warner Brothers released The Singing Fool, the second Al Jolson musical, after the absolute hit The Jazz Singer. After returning from Europe, Marion went to see the film, in which Jolson sang the tear-jerking song Sonny Boy in blackface, and when she went to see it, she came out crying, the sounds of success unbearable to her arrogant ears. Marion secretly stuttered. She was certain that all that she had worked for was done for now. When the much-anticipated time came to test the sound acting abilities of all MGM silent stars, Marion slipped in a bit of alcohol just to get through it. And when it was over, she was sure she'd failed, but Thalberg told her that her test was the best of all of them, and he extended her contract that night. Now, anyone could tell you that Thalberg's unnecessary kindness towards her sound acting abilities had nothing to do with her actual ability, but with the mere fact that she and her boyfriend were way too valuable to the studio to just let go down the drain for a thing as petty as voice. They brought in money, and that is precisely what they wanted from them. Thalberg immediately rushed Davies into production on her first ever sound film, called Marianne, and he himself looked after the whole process. The film Marianne revolved around the life of a French maid, played by Marion, and was slightly erotic. Marion's accent in the film was very solid, so Marion Davies survived the transition from soundless to sound, but she never got any good parts. They were instead handed over to Thalberg's wife, Shearer Irving. Davies would later call Marie Antoinette the straw that broke the camel's back at MGM. Despite frequently being warned by MGM that they didn't view her as a serious actor, she performed extensive research on the contentious French queen, reading Stefan Zweig's book at Hearst's insistence, and she truly seemed to think she had a chance to beat Shearer at the role. Hearst said that he and Davies were quitting MGM and shifting their business to Warner Brothers after Shearer was cast. Marion's MGM bungalow was disassembled, transported in sections on a truck, and then assembled on the Warner Brothers lot. Davies stated Mayer sobbed as she saw it end. At Warner Brothers, Davies produced 4 motion pictures before announcing her retirement at the age of 40 in 1937. WR and Marion settled in. Hearst himself was quite literally pushed to give up his film company. He was so short on cash that he had to start selling off art and antiquities. Marion helped him with her own savings and gave her long-term benefactor $5 million. In 1941, word spread about the Hollywood film industry that a huge writer-director-actor had made a film about Hearst and his company. Orson Welles would later say that Citizen Kane was not a biopic about William Randolph Hearst, that he intended Kane would be a combined mixture of the men in power all over the United States of America, including Chicago press baron Robert McCormick, and that Susan Alexander, the all-too-familiar blonde singer who Hearst, in the movie, left his wife for, and whose career Hearst invented by using his newspapers to print false reports of her success, was by no means intended to call to mind Marion Davies. But the parallels between the film and Davies and Hearst's lives were hard to ignore. It was very apparent and clear as day that the movie was a straight-up mockery, and this enraged him. Hearst banned all of his papers from covering Citizen Kane, and initially other films by RKO too. Then Luella Persons, the gossip columnist employed by the Hearst Corporation, rolled up her sleeves and got to work. She started calling studios and threatening to release all the scandalous information and scrumptious gossip she had been holding on to about them if they did not join hands to shun and shame RKO into not releasing the film. Fox, Warner Brothers, and MGM each announced that their theater chains would not exhibit the movie at all. Unlike Susan Alexander in the film, and Hearst's own wife, Marion Davies, stayed quiet with William Randolph Hearst until he died in 1951. She left behind a legacy of excellence and perhaps melancholy. She died on September 22, 1961, in Los Angeles, California. Marion Davies was a bona fide star, a product of a time which made her brand of stardom wholly possible. She captured the heart of a powerful man who would do anything to guarantee her success. The stardom that she still enjoys and the fame which she will always lay claim to was duly earned and will forever belong to her. It was strange how she was both a mixture of talent and talentless at the same time, and how she was something no one was ever able to be. Marion had a strong hand secured around her hip, yes, but that did not mean her success was not hard-earned. It was, and that is why the actress will continue living through her films, albeit most silent, and will go on to live in people's hearts forever. If you liked this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you are new here. We cannot take away from her that Marion Davies was devoted to a man who never loved her as she loved him. Lauren Bacall was not lucky as well. Why was Lauren Bacall so unfortunate with men? Let's find out from this video.